Internet's been a bit dodgy lately because of the weather. Anyway, I'll wait for the audience to come in a little bit before I start again. Typical. Always when I fucking lose the audience. I do so well as a streamer and then bang, internet dies. And it's like, oh great, I fucking just lost my fucking audience. I'd have like fucking 30 people in my fucking live stream and then my internet would die and then I'd start another live stream and then bang, 0 viewers. And it's like, great, fucking good one. Anyway.
Engine disabled. Continue point reached.
Alright. Yeah, that's it, that's it. You'll probably notice that there might be a couple of bums hanging out there at the fucking Woolies. There's lots of bums hanging out. I'm gonna see if I can get some food. Six, seven. Yeah, sorry, internet cut out. It's typical. So I got lucky here. This cunt got stuck on geometry. So I've used the fact that he got stuck on it. It's annoying. Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. Pissing me off. Okay, bloke, touch your bike. Oh no. You probably went, oh, that feels good up my butt. Yeah. Well, I know that in New Zealand, they got a name that's like stupidly long. It's like Zawanaka Hawanaka Laka Sawa Balaka Laka La Sabalaka Laka Laka Da fucking whatever else the fucking says, you know, like. Actually, you know what? I'm going to start off at this point. So we'll continue off at this point. So that way, I can save up the energy. Q. There we go. That. Yeah, what did you get for dinner? I got some, I think it was like cheesy bacon mashies or something like that. Some Woolworths brand. I think that's nice. Six, 7. Alright. Oh. Unless there's some more health around here somewhere. Because you never know, I might have not grabbed everything. Huh? Doesn't look like it. This is the hard one. Alright. It's the hard part. I wonder, can I cheese this? Or am I going to? You don't have an Aldi there? Oh, I thought you guys had Aldi in New Zealand. Huh. I didn't know that. I don't know, guys. I know it's possible. I think it would be possible to do this. But to be frank with you guys, honestly, I'm pretty tired. So I think I might actually call it quits for tonight's little thing. You got a Kmart, Nito. Seems like it's have a diarrhea dump on its way. Alright, so I'll leave it there. And maybe we'll watch a Ubency Tube video while we watch a YouTube video while we start settling down. Well, let's watch Panic Code video.
In Super Mario 64, there are many different objects. Some objects, like teleporters, never get rendered, and so you never see them. But for most objects, like wing cap blocks, they do get rendered, and so you can see them. However, even objects that get rendered sometimes turn off their rendering. For example, a wing cap block turns off its rendering for a bit after you open it. It's still there right now, you just can't see it. And then after a bit, it turns on its rendering again. So how do objects turn on and off their rendering? Well, every object has 2 bits in memory that affect rendering, and here's what they do. One bit controls whether the object is active or inactive. We'll refer to this property as activeness, and it'll be colored red. The other bit controls whether the object is visible or invisible. We'll refer to this property as visibility, and it'll be colored blue. Now, since there are 2 bits, both with 2 possibilities, we can draw a table showing all 4 combinations. Of these 4 cases, the object only gets rendered when it's both active and visible. In the other 3 cases, the object does not get rendered. So basically, toggling an object's activeness
It
will
hurts so
toggle whether
bad.
it gets rendered, and toggling an object's visibility will toggle whether it gets rendered. So you might be wondering, why do objects have 2 properties that seemingly do the same thing? The answer is because these 2 properties are used in different ways, and in a moment we'll step through some examples. During each example, I'll show this table in real time. Specifically, I'll put one arrow to indicate whether the object is active or inactive, and another arrow to indicate whether the object is visible or invisible. I'll also highlight in purple which of the 4 cases is currently happening. And finally, if the object we're examining is not currently loaded, either because it hasn't spawned yet or it already despawned, then the whole table will be grayed out. So, now let's talk about an object's activeness. If we're in a course that has different rooms, then the object can opt into a system where it's only active when Mario's in the same room as the object. For example, in Hazy Maze Cave, if we leave the room that a scuttlebug's in, then the scuttlebug becomes inactive. Consequently, it no longer gets rendered, and so we can't see it even if we look on the other side of the wall. On the other hand, signs don't opt into this system, so a sign stays active even if we're in a different room, which is why we can still see the sign here. Now, if the course doesn't have rooms, then the object can opt into a different system where it's only active when Mario's within a certain radius of the object, called the draw distance. And note that different objects can have different draw distances. For example, Goombas opt into this system with a draw distance of 4,000. So they're active when Mario's within 4,000 units of them, and inactive when Mario's more than 4,000 units away from them. Piranha plants opt into this system with a draw distance of 2,000, so they're active when Mario's within 2,000 units of them, and inactive when Mario's more than 2,000 units away from them. Red coins don't opt into this system, so they're active regardless of how far away Mario is. Now let's talk about visibility. The way visibility is used varies based on the object, as each object can toggle its visibility to suit whatever needs it has. For example, a wing cap block turns invisible after you open it, and then 10 seconds later it turns visible again. A tiny piranha plant turns visible when you go close to it and it grows out of the ground, and it turns invisible after it shrinks back down. A snowman turns visible when you go close to him and he comes out from the ground, and he turns invisible after you go far away from him and he goes back into the ground. Now let's talk about flickering. As you may know, many objects flicker right before they disappear. This includes wing caps, metal caps, vanish caps, yellow coins, blue coins, track platforms, the controllable platform, hidden cork boxes, and grabbable cork boxes. So yeah, it's a pretty common thing in the game. Now note that all objects flicker by rapidly toggling their visibility, not by rapidly toggling their activeness. So consider a grabbable cork box. If we pick it up, put it down, and wait 30 seconds, then it flickers and disappears. And as I mentioned, the flickering works by having the box oscillate between being visible and invisible. Separately, we can move in and out of the box's draw distance, causing it to oscillate between being active and inactive. Since the flickering and the draw distance use different bits in memory, there's no issue with mixing them together. So we can move in and out of the box's draw distance while it's flickering, and it functions just how you'd expect. The box only gets rendered when both we're in the draw distance and it's during a frame when the flickering makes the box be visible. So no problems there. Now there's another object that flickers, sort of, and that's 1-ups. So let's talk about them. There are actually 6 types of 1-ups, and whether they flicker before they disappear depends on which type we're talking about. So let's go through the 6 types and see which ones successfully flicker before disappearing. First, there are 1-ups that are stationary. Assuming that we don't collect them, these 1-ups last forever, meaning they never disappear. So it doesn't make sense to talk about whether these ones flicker before disappearing. Second, there are 1-ups that appear on the tops of poles and then follow Mario. These ones also last forever if we don't collect them, so we also don't have to consider whether these ones flicker before disappearing. Third, there are 1-ups on slides that move when you get close to them. These ones last until Mario goes a certain distance away from them, at which point they do flicker before disappearing. Fourth, there are 1-ups that appear when you touch all the triggers of them. These ones
Now I
last
know
until
Gleaming
Mario goes a
exists.
certain distance away from them, or they hit a
Yeah.
wall, at which point they do flicker
That's a
before
pretty good
disappearing.
place. I'll be honest with you, it's a good place.
Fifth, there are 1-ups that run away from Mario. These ones last until Mario
Blessings.
goes a certain distance away from them, or they hit a wall, at which point they do not flicker before disappearing. And sixth, there are 1-ups that move in a straight line. These ones last for 10 seconds, after which they do not flicker before disappearing. So those are the 6 types of 1-ups and whether they flicker before disappearing. So what's going on with those last 2? Did the programmers just forget to add flickering to them? Well, actually, they didn't forget. You see, we have the code for the 1-up behavior, so we can see exactly what's going on. And I should mention, the 1-up code is kind of a mess. It feels like different people wrote the code for the different 1-up types without really consulting each other. And that's why only 2 of the 1-up types have the bug in them that makes them not flicker. Speaking of which, here's the code for one of the 1-up types that doesn't flicker. And you can see right here that it actually is programmed to flicker. But then later, it calls another function. Specifically, it calls setObjectVisibility with the value 3000. So what that function does is set the 1-up to be visible if and only if Mario's within 3000 units of the 1-up. Sound familiar? This function is basically copying the activeness logic we talked about earlier. But instead of being a draw distance that affects activeness, this draw distance affects visibility. In other words, the 1-up doesn't opt into the standard activeness functionality that most objects use, but instead uses a sort of ripoff of it. And some other objects do it this way too. For example, if we go far away from a bully, it becomes invisible, and then it becomes visible when we go close again. In contrast, if we go far away from a Goomba, it becomes inactive, and then it becomes active when we go close again. So these 2 situations look pretty similar, since the object renders when we're close to it and stops rendering when we're far from it. But internally, they're using different systems. The Goomba is toggling its activeness because it opted into that system, and the bully is toggling its visibility because it calls the setObjectVisibility function in the bully code. Now for most objects, it doesn't really matter which of these 2 systems is used. For a 1-up, it does matter because now the 1-up's using a visibility radius and is trying to flicker. In other words, we have 2 pieces of code that are both trying to dictate the 1-up's visibility. First, the flickering sets the 1-up's visibility, and then second, the distance to Mario sets the 1-up's visibility. So on each frame, that second step overwrites whatever the first step does. And so the first step, aka the flickering logic, never determines the final visibility status used by the rendering logic. Remember the cork box? It could both flicker and have a draw distance because it used 2 different bits for those. But for the 1-up, it's trying to do both of those things with just 1 bit. So on our table, it's like having 2 arrows trying to dictate whether the 1-up should be visible. 1 arrow based on the flickering, and 1 arrow based on the distance to Mario. Since the flickering arrow gets overridden by the distance arrow, I'll gray it out to represent that it has no effect on the final outcome. So now if we watch the table, we can see that the 1-up does try to flicker, but it doesn't end up happening due to being overridden. See, the gray flicker arrow is oscillating as it's meant to, but try as it might, it has no effect because the blue distance arrow has the final say and it's just staying on visible. And note that the draw distance functionality works just fine. So we can make the 1-up become invisible by going far away from it, and become visible by going closer again. See, the blue distance arrow is moving, and that does affect the 1-up's visibility. Actually, that gives me an idea. Maybe we can make the 1-up flicker if we play our cards right. See, in theory, we can have Mario oscillate in and out of the 1-up's visibility radius every other frame, which should make the 1-up flicker just as originally intended. So let's do it. First, I'll open the box and release the 1-up. Then, I'll transport the 1-up to a different area so that we can work with a better setup. setup. Specifically, down here, there's a big wall on the right. Once the 1-up touches that wall, it'll start trying to flicker, and that's when I'll have Mario oscillate. So watch the 1-up closely. Yup, it flickered alright. See, the blue arrow matched the gray arrow on every frame, so it's as if the gray arrow was calling the shots. So congratulations, gray arrow, your intention has finally been achieved after all this time. And congratulations to the 1-up too. After 27 years, you finally got to experience flickering. You got to exist for a frame, then not exist for a frame, then exist, then not exist, and repeated that until finally you stopped existing for forever. Okay, maybe it's not as fun as I thought. But anyway, in conclusion, certain types of 1-ups try to flicker, but they fail to do so. That's because after the flickering logic sets the 1-up's visibility, the visibility then gets overwritten by another function who sets visibility based on how close Mario is to the 1-up. So if only that function had affected activeness instead of visibility, then the flickering would have worked just fine. But that's not the way it is, and so the flickering doesn't work. So the moral of the story is, if you toggle your visibility when you should have toggled your activeness, you're gonna have a bad time. Thanks for watching.
Oh, he's freaking.
And we can't move out of his home range because his home updates to where he is on every knockback. So his home range is effectively following us. So yeah, he just hunts us down until we die. I also tried going to the right, but the same thing happened. He just kept attacking me and I died. Ultimately though, even if we found a way past the scuttlebug, it wouldn't matter, because the only way out of this room is through doors, and punching our way into a door doesn't open it. So no matter what, we're trapped in this room where there are no stars to get. Next, we have lethal lava land, and you can probably see where this is going. We punch our way forwards, fall into this gap, and then die from the lava. So yeah, pretty simple to analyze, but it's not the outcome we wanted. Then we have shifting sands land. Now this one's actually going to require a lot of analysis, so let's actually put this one aside for now and come back to it later. Next we have dire docks. We're going to start off in water this time, which is pretty unique. So we should test all 3 buttons. For the B button, we can swim forward and reach the slope on the perimeter. From there, we can continue pressing B to slowly move along the wall, but then after a few minutes, we get stuck in this corner. If we use the A button instead, we can also swim forward, but this time when we reach the slope, we just get stuck there, because now all we can do is jump in place. And then for the Z button, Z doesn't do anything in water, so that won't work either. So let's move on to Snowman's Land. Now this course I actually had high hopes for, because I thought maybe we could do the glitch to duplicate money bags and get the 100 coin star out of them. Unfortunately though, just due to the angle that we start at, we end up reading this sign and getting stuck. And like I keep saying, there's literally nothing we can do about it. No amount of energy or willpower can avoid this sign. Then next we have Wet Dry World, which actually has 3 different starting states. Because depending on whether you enter the painting low, medium, or high, the initial water level in the course will be different. So let's look at all 3 water levels. First, let's do the low water level. We can punch forward, drop off of the wooden board, and get onto the ground. From there, we can have the skeeter knock into Mario, redirecting us to any angle we want. With this angle though, I just end up getting stuck in the corner, which will basically happen no matter which direction we go, because there are no ramps that connect the bottom floor to anything else. So we're essentially just stuck on the bottom floor. The only exception would be if we manage to get over to the teleporter. That relocates us onto the cannon platform, which is very close to the shocking arrowless star. But as expected, we don't have a good angle, so we just end up punching our way off of the platform and falling back down to the ground. Then second, we have the medium water level. This time, we can swim forward, have the skeeter knock into us to change our angle, and then go forward to climb up this ramp. Then we get burnt by the fire spitter, which actually causes Mario to bonk and turn around. Then from there, we get burnt again and fall back into the water. So that didn't lead to anything. And finally, we have the high water level. This time, all we can do is swim forward and get stuck on the wall. That's because this time we can't use the skeeter to redirect us since he's essentially broken on this water level. He just goes back and forth infinitely. You see, the skeeter sets its home right when it spawns in, so its home ends up deep under the water. Then the skeeter rises up to the water's surface, causing him to leave his home range. And when he's outside of his home range, he has to aim back towards his home on every lunge. That results in him going too far past his home one way, then too far the other way, and so on. And it repeats down to the exact position, so there's no hope of getting knocked back from him. Then next, we have Tall Mountain. Now, if we just punch our way forwards, we end up falling off the edge. But notice how there are Goombas nearby. So interestingly, we can wait for one to come close, then he notices Mario and bumps into us. That means we can use the Goombas to turn to whatever angle we want. But the question is there any angle that would even help? Hypothetically, if we got over here, we could fall off and go into the wind, but then we're just trapped in the wind with no way to move. We could try going this way, but then we fall into the gap. Now I tested if using the crazy box could help us cross the gap, but I couldn't make it work. But even if we did get past it, then we just encounter the next gap, so it wouldn't work anyway. Now speedrunners grab the crazy box and use it to bounce onto the lonely mushroom and get the star there. But notice how that technique uses the control stick to help stay on the level before the big bounce. In the one button challenge though, we can't use the control stick. So if we grab the crazy box while facing the mushroom, we can't hold ourselves back and we just end up going over the edge. And I also tried bouncing off of the wall to give me slightly more room, but that doesn't work either. Next we have Tiny Huge Island, which actually has two different entrances. You can enter the Tiny Island or the Huge Island. So let's start with the Tiny Island. We can kill this Goomba, punch our way into the water, but then we get stuck in a corner. Now since we start so close to that Goomba, this is a rare case where using the A button is kinda useful. We can bounce on the Goomba, get the coin, and then we're stuck again. Okay, now I remember why I stopped showing the A button. Now in the Huge Island though, we have a lot more room to explore. We can use the Goombas to redirect our angle, punch our way through the hole in the wall, enter the water, get redirected by a Spiny, get onto this land, use a Fly Guy to redirect our angle, continue going forward, but then we fall off at this big gap in the ground. Hypothetically though, it may be possible to somehow bounce on the Goomba, get knocked back from the Fly Guy, twirl off of the Fly Guy, which moves Mario through the air while falling very slowly. Now it looks like we're gonna die, but there's actually vertical wind over here that saves us. So we can ride the vertical wind over, which ultimately places us down on this ground. But even if we did all that legitimately, there'd be nothing to do from here. We can't enter the warp pipe, and going this way would just get stuck at this wall since we can't jump. Now we could also try going onto the beach, but it's surrounded by walls and steep floors, so there's nowhere to go from there either. And even if we found a way to get onto the Koopa shell, it still wouldn't help because the shell can't climb up steep floors, at least not without the control stick. Then next we have Tick-Tock Clock. Another simple one to analyze because punching forwards just falls off the course and we die. It doesn't even matter what setting the stage is on, like slow, fast, still, or random, because we don't even interact with any of the clock parts. And note that we don't get close enough to the Bob-Omb's homes to affect them at all, so we can't use them. Next, we're in Rainbow Ride, and we start out with the perfect angle. Punching goes right onto the bridge and then onto the carpet. But can we survive the carpet ride? Well, we can get past this gray block that wasn't even in the way, but then we get to this blue block and there's nothing I can do, so I fall off. I even tried using punch recoil to back off of the carpet and then diving forwards in the hopes that I could do a rollout, but I just don't land back on the carpet, so I couldn't get it to work. Well, that was all the main courses, so next let's look at the secret courses. In Tower of the Wing Cap, we start off flying, which means the B button doesn't do anything. We just continue flying forward until we move so far away that we get ejected from the level. Same thing with the A button, it also doesn't do anything. But since we're flying, this is a rare case where pressing Z is actually useful. It lets us ground pound and fall straight down. Here I've even landed on the wing cap switch. I didn't press it though, because it was already pressed. If the switch were up though, maybe we could press it using only Z. I mean, it's not a star, but it would be something at least. Unfortunately though, we can't even do that, because if you enter the course with the switch not yet pressed, you get a dialog box. And Z can't scroll through dialogue, so we're just stuck. Then we have Cavern of the Metal Cap. We can punch our way forward, and we're temporarily immune from the Snuffet's bullets because we start off with the metal cap, Once the metal cap runs out though, we just get decimated by the Snuffit. And there's no way to get past him because we're just not fast enough. So he just keeps hitting me and eventually I die from it. Then next is Vanish Cap under the moat. We have a decent angle this time, so punching forward goes onto the ramp and then we slide down. Okay, we missed that red coin. Still going though. Okay, we missed everything, but can it still somehow work out? Unfortunately, no, because once we're at the bottom, punching forward just makes us fall off the edge. Then we have the Princess's Secret Slide. Here we're facing straight forward, and you couldn't have asked for a better angle, so we can punch our way forwards towards the slide. Now remember, we have no control over our spacing, so there's just one way to go onto the slide. In other words, we can't change anything about our setup, so we only have one shot at this, and whatever happens, happens. Okay, we're doing pretty good so far, although this is the part with the walls on the sides. Once the walls are gone though, we instantly fall off, so that didn't work. Next, we have the secret aquarium, where we start off swimming again, so let's test all the buttons. The B button moves us forward, which does let us get some coins, but without the ability to turn, we ultimately end up getting stuck against this wall until we drown. Same thing with the A button. We can collect some coins, but then we get stuck and drown. And while swimming, the Z button doesn't do anything, so that's useless. There is one cool thing though. Watch what happens if we press literally nothing. Mario falls straight down, very slowly, and at one point he triggers a 1-up to spawn and instantly collects it. See, we went from 4 to 5 lives. So if your goal was to collect a 1-up in the no input challenge, then we've done it. But that's not our goal. We want to get a star in the 1 button challenge, so let's move on. Next, we have Wing Mario over the rainbow. I mean, this level's hard to do even when you have access to all the inputs. So we don't really stand a chance. We just punch forward and then fall off the cloud. Then we have Bowser in the Dark World. We start off with just the right angle so we can get pretty far. We punch our way down the steps, across the bridge, but then we get to the fire. We don't move fast enough to avoid it, so we do have to get burnt by it. It's not the worst thing though, because it does let us move pretty fast. Then we can get past these platforms, continue punching our way forward, but then we get to this part with a U-turn. And without the ability to turn around, there's nothing we can do. We get burned and just run off the edge. Then next, we have Bowser in the Fire Sea, where we also start off with a good angle. We can punch our way forward onto the elevator, then the elevator starts moving, and gee, I wonder what's gonna happen. Well, in case you haven't figured it out, we get pushed off by this gray block, and then we just die in the lava. And then we have Bowser in the sky. We can punch our way forward, but as you can see, we end up falling into this gap. Well, that was all the secret courses, so all that's left are the stars in the castle itself. Now, the castle isn't exactly a course, so it's not even clear where we should start from. But I'll make the rule that we can start from any transition into the castle, including from exiting courses. So now, let's analyze the castle stars. First, we have the star from the Toad in the Hazy Maze Cave room. So our best bet is to enter the castle by dying in Hazy Maze Cave. That starts us in the right room and facing vaguely towards the Toad, but if we punch forwards, we just fall back into the level. We can also try exiting Hazy Maze Cave by collecting a star, which is like the only other thing to test, but pressing B on this menu doesn't do anything, so we're just stuck. Second, we have the star from the Toad outside of Tall Tall Mountain. Now if we do a death exit from Tall Tall Mountain, we end up stuck punching against the wall. A star exit would give us a much better angle, but like I said, we just get stuck on the menu. Third, there's the star from the Toad in the Tick-Tock Clock room. Here our best bet is to do a death exit from Tick-Tock Clock, which faces vaguely towards the Toad, but similar to before, we end up getting stuck punching against the clock. And then the final stars in the castle are from catching Mips the rabbit. We can try doing a death exit from Lethal Lava Land, but that faces the wrong way. Now a star exit would face right towards Mips, but then we can't get past the menu. So yeah, the castle stars aren't looking very possible. So let's review. We went through every course in the game except Shifting Sands Land, and they all failed. So if there's any hope for this challenge, it would have to be done in Shifting Sands Land. It's our only shot left at collecting a star with one button. So let's analyze it. We start off here on this white platform. Punching forwards then moves us towards the crazy box. We grab it and bounce through the air. I can't change anything about the trajectory of the bounces, but once I land, I can continue punching to move. Interestingly, then the fly guy attacks me. If we push through it though, I can continue forward and go to the perimeter of the course, but then we just die in the quicksand. Alternatively, we can have the fly guy bump into us just right to let us face a better direction. From there, we can make our way over to the Goombas, who can then let us face whatever direction we want. But what direction are we trying to face? Where do we go to get the stars? Well, let me explain what stars are even in this course. There's a star from Klepto the bird, a star on the top of the outside of the pyramid, at the top of the inside of the pyramid, for beating the IROC boss, for collecting the 8 red coins, for collecting the 5 secrets inside the pyramid, and a star for collecting 100 coins. Those are the 7 stars in Shifting Sands Land. Now these 3 stars are all located inside the pyramid, so they'll be easy to analyze. We'll just assume for now that we can get into the pyramid and see if we can do anything from there. But there are actually 2 different ways to enter the pyramid. First, there's the lower entrance, which starts you on the bottom of the inside. Punching forward here just ends up getting stuck against this railing, so that won't help. And second, there's the upper entrance, which starts you at the top of the inside in this elevator. Similar results here, we just end up stuck punching against the wall. So right off the bat, we can eliminate the 3 stars inside the pyramid, because any way you enter the pyramid just immediately gets stuck. Next, let's think about the red coin star. Since our main tool is just punching along the ground, it would be pretty difficult to get these 4 red coins up in the air. Like, consider this red coin near the oasis. If we can prove this red coin is impossible to get, then the whole star is impossible to get. So let's analyze it. It's not like we can fly to it, because flying requires the A button. We can't shoot from the cannon, because that also requires the A button. So really, our only hope is trying to use this fly guy to twirl over to it. But even under the best theoretical conditions, which is a knockback into a twirl, it still doesn't go far enough to reach that red coin. So, I'm declaring the red coin star impossible. That means we're left with just 3 stars in the whole game. The Klepto star, the Pyramid star, and the 100 coin star. The whole challenge comes down to these 3. So let's do a deep dive into the 100 coin star. We need to collect 100 coins, but luckily it doesn't have to be 100 unique coins, because there is an infinite coin glitch that we may be able to use, and it has to do with the cork box. You see, if you pick up a cork box, put it down, and then wait 30 seconds, the box actually flickers and then disappears. And then assuming you go far away enough, the box also then respawns in its original location. But now watch what happens if we throw the box from just the right position. The box moves along the ground and it ends up slowing down due to friction. So you can see that the box is heading right towards the wooden fence on the edge of the map, and if it touches that, it would break. But it doesn't quite touch it yet because it's going so slowly. In fact, the box will never come to a complete stop. It just moves slower and slower until it's moving a few hundredths of a unit per frame. And it's still going to disappear after 30 seconds. Now it actually moves into the wall on the exact frame when it disappears, so it both explodes with coins and respawns. That means we can get the coins from the broken box and then repeat this process with the newly respawned box. So that's how you can get infinite coins out of a cork box. But what about the box in Shifting Sands Land? Can we do the same thing here, but while only pressing B? Well, firstly, since we can't use the control stick, that means we can't walk around with the box. In other words, we can't bring it to the perfect spot to throw it from. Instead, all we can do is punch our way up to the box, grab it, and then throw it. So the question is there a way to throw it from right here where it'll crash into something after exactly 30 seconds? Well, I used some brute forcing tools to test thousands of throw trajectories, and I found that if we pick up the box and throw it exactly like this, then the box moves along the ground, slides down the hill, and after 30 seconds, it moves onto the pillar and breaks. That's because the bottom floor of the pillar is very steep, and steep floors are treated the same way as walls, aka they break the box. So miraculously, there is a way to throw the box from its starting position where it breaks after exactly 30 seconds. But the next question is, how do we get the coins from the box? Ideally, we should get all 3 of them, but it's not as simple as you might think. And that's because even if we throw the box and then immediately start punching forwards towards the pillar, we don't end up very close to it by the time the coins spawn. But maybe we could have the coins come to us. Well, the trajectory of the 3 coins is based on RNG, and the RNG value in the game can only have one of 65,000 possible values. That means there are only 65,000 possible coin trajectory patterns we can get. And we just need one pattern to work for this whole strat to be successful. So, I ran a brute forcer to test every coin trajectory pattern. Now, we need all 3 coins to come towards us and for them to stick together. But let me tell you, the coins do not like traveling over this hill. It's too steep for them, so it's a miracle if even one coin has enough momentum to go over it. So getting all three to go over it just isn't an option from any RNG value. Instead, I found that it's much more likely to work if the coins go around the hill on the right. So check this out. We pick up the box, throw it, and then get hit by a Goomba immediately after to change our angle. Now we have to punch our way over as fast as we can because we're just barely gonna get there in time. Then the box breaks and all three coins come directly over here. It looks a bit unusual because the coins don't spread out randomly, but that's the power of brute forcing an exact RNG value. We can force this super rare coin pattern to happen. And so with that figured out, let me show you the final product. And since this is the real task, I'm now showing the HUD, the controller inputs, a B press counter, and a timer. So you have all the info you could ever want. Now like before, we punch our way up to the crazy box and ride it over. Then we get turned around by the fly guy. And you'll notice that I collect every coin out of the crazy box and fly guy, because remember, we're going for 100 coins. And even though we have access to infinite coins, it'll still save time to get the coins that are found naturally in the course. And with that hit, I'm now facing the right direction. So goodbye fly guy, you've served your part in this historic feat. Then I punch this way and I'm faced with the pokey. It's not easy, but I do manage to kill him with only B presses. And I have this coin come directly towards us so I can collect it. Similarly, I kill one of the Goombas and get his coin. Like, we don't need all three Goombas for this, just two of them. In fact, having an extra Goomba around would just make things harder because it'd be one more enemy we'd have to avoid running into. Then I break this box and get the red coin inside. I get hit by a Goomba to redirect me towards the tornado, use the tornado to turn around, punch this way, use the pokey to slightly readjust my angle, then I kill him and get his coin. Now I punch past the Goombas and stop. Now there's a reason I'm standing right here, and it's because here are the Goombas' homes and their home ranges. The Goombas will only target Mario when he's within their home range, but here he's right outside of it. So the Goombas won't target Mario if they get close. But the Goombas can still walk into Mario if they happen to walk outside of their home range right at that spot. So it's the perfect conditions. The Goomba won't target Mario if he gets close, but he can still affect Mario eventually. And that gives us enough time to manipulate RNG to get the exact right collision to happen so that Mario faces the perfect angle. Because let me tell you, the angles we need for this are precise down to the exact angle because the box throws just that precise. But wait, how do we manipulate RNG if all we can do is press B? Like usually, we manipulate RNG by making dust, but that involves using the control stick, so we can't do that. But as luck would have it, we actually do have two ways of manipulating RNG using only the B button, and they have to do with the sand that's in the course. You see, if you press B 3 times in a row, Mario does a punch-punch-kick, and the kick causes sand particles to appear. And each of those sand particles calls RNG to go in a random direction. So yeah, doing the punch-punch-kick to spawn sand particles affects RNG, but it has a major flaw, which is that it causes us to move forwards. So if we kept doing it, we'd move too far away from the Goomba's home range, and then the Goomba would never hit us. But lucky for us, there's a second way to affect RNG, and the whole strat basically depends on this. You see, if we wait a while, Mario will end up going to sleep. Specifically, he sits down and closes his eyes. And then if we wait even longer, he lies down. And the act of lying down on sand spawns sand particles, which affect RNG. Then at a strategic moment, we can press B to wake Mario up and have him go back to sleep again, spawning even more sand particles. So, we can just repeat this process to spawn sand particles on specific frames. That manipulates RNG without Mario moving anywhere, and so we can make the Goomba eventually walk into us. Then we get the other Goomba to knock into Mario, and this one's easier because we can just go into his home range and get him to notice us. And now we're facing the perfect direction for the box throw. Now after we throw the box, we also have to have the Goomba bump into us immediately. We have to avoid interacting with the Goombas as we make our way over to the coins, and we have to get the coins to spawn on the exact right RNG value. Now the RNG can take about 10 minutes to cycle around. So really, it's only every 10 minutes that we have an opportunity to get the RNG value we want. So yeah, a lot of this task is just waiting around for RNG to line up. Now here I'm about to get the 3 coins, which will recover me back to full health. And that's important because if I lost health each cycle, it wouldn't be repeatable, because then we'd keep losing health until we died. But with the way I'm doing it, I get hit 3 times and then collect 3 coins, so it works out perfectly. Anyway, then I make my way over to the tornado to turn around, and that completes the first cycle. So now we just have to repeat all that until we have 100 coins, which is exactly what I did over the course of 3 months. And let me tell you, this was the least fun task I've ever worked on, literally. Basically, every step of the way had to be meticulously brute forced. I had to brute force the tornado to give Mario a good angle. Then I had to brute force the first Goomba knockback, the second Goomba knockback, and the third Goomba knockback. And that third one could take days, because getting that specific RNG value was so rare, in addition to everything else that needed to line up. Look at all the code I had to write. Look at it. Not only did it have to work, it also had to be pretty optimized so that it wouldn't take forever to find solutions. And it's not like I just pressed run on the brute forcer and left it on for 3 months. I had to carefully monitor and babysit this brute forcer the whole time, because every time it found a potential solution, I'd have to manually check it to make sure it actually worked, since lots of unforeseen things could go wrong. But if it did work, then I had to task the next little bit and tweak the brute forcer code to match the new conditions. And
One button,
sometimes the brute
Mario.
forcer would reach a dead end, so I'd have to go back and re-brute force the previous step to try again. So yeah, for 3 months, I was basically on call for this task 24/7. It drove me crazy, but it had to be done. I had to collect a star with one button, no matter how much time or effort it took. Whether it was weeks, months, or even years, I was committed to getting it done. Now, the brute forcer didn't take 100% of my attention, so I did work on some other videos while it was running, namely the Pyramid A Press video and the Womp's Fortress Tower video. So yeah, I have been going a little slow on videos this year, but not because I've been lazy, it's because making this one task took 3 months of my attention. I had to task the cycle 26 times in all, and even doing it just once was a monumental effort. But after 8 in-game hours, we finally reached the end of the cycles at 98 coins. But where did the last 2 coins come from? Well, let's just say we don't need those 2 Goombas anymore. They served their purpose. So I kill this Goomba and get his coin, and then for the other Goomba, I kill him too. And I actually end up doing it behind this pillar so you can't even see it. It's like it's censored because it's too heartbreaking to kill the guy who made the whole strat possible. Then I get his coin and spawn the 100 coin star. But wait, how did we get the star if all we can do is punch along the ground? Well, luckily, there's a slope over here. So we can punch onto the slope, slide down backwards, and then roll out into the star. So we did it. We got a star in the 1 button challenge in just over 9,000 B presses. And we can even use the B button to press save on the dialog box. So yeah, that's how the 100 coin star can be done using only 1 button. But we still have 2 more stars to go, so next, let's look at the pyramid star. This time, we don't have to collect lots of coins, we just need to somehow make our way to the top of the pyramid. So how can we get over here? Normally, you're supposed to go all the way around the course, including navigating the stone path with the tox boxes. But if you think we can navigate all these turns in the 1 button challenge, then you haven't been paying attention. There's no way we could get past this part with just punching. But watch this. With just the right setup, we can use the tornado to get on top of this pillar. And from there, we may be able to bounce on the fly guy to twirl over to the pyramid. But even once we're on the pyramid, we still need to find a way to climb up it. Normally, you're supposed to go all around it to climb it, but we can't exactly turn with just the B button, so that idea doesn't seem very promising. But look what I figured out. We can have this fly guy shoot us with a flame, causing Mario to run while on fire. And when he's in that state, he can climb up steep slopes. So with all that figured out, here's what I did. Same beginning as before. We grab the crazy ones, get the fly guy to redirect us, heal using the Pokey's coin, get the Goombas to redirect us, and then go to the tornado. Remember, we want to use this tornado to get onto the pillar, but that strat wouldn't work right off the bat because the tornado remembers certain variables between each iteration. Specifically, it remembers its moving angle and it remembers its size oscillation timer. So before we can use it to get onto the pillar, I first have to get the tornado into a good state. Once it's ready, I navigate away from it, use the Goombas to turn me around, navigate over to this tornado, twirl it a couple times to face the right direction, and then head over to the pillar. From here, I'm able to get the tornado to drop me off on top of the pillar since I had put it into the exact right state for that to happen. Then I punch onto the side of the pillar, fall off because it's so steep, bounce on the fly guy, and twirl all the way over to the pyramid. Now I land facing towards the pyramid slope, so I punch up to it and actually use it to redirect my angle to be more parallel to the slope. Then I punch forwards until I get the fly guy's attention. He knocks into me, which gives me a better angle because now I'm facing directly towards the slope. Now I can go onto the slope and slide down to make dust, which helps manipulate RNG to control the fly guy. Eventually, when all the conditions are right, I get him to knock into me again, which makes me face right towards the star. Then he burns me, allowing me to run directly up the slope. Now I managed to make it into the star's little cubby, but I still can't quite reach the star. Luckily though, we're facing slightly towards it, so if we just keep repeatedly punching into the wall, Mario slowly moves along the wall until finally he collects the star. So it's pretty lucky how that works out. And here's an aerial view of the ending so that you can see exactly what's going on. So Mario goes into the cubby, the fly guy then tries to attack us again, but he ends up going away. Now eventually, Mario starts punching the wall. Now Mario doesn't actually get any closer to the star as he punches forwards or recoils backwards. During those, he just stays on the same line. It's only when he's in contact with the wall that he ends up moving slightly north, and then is on a slightly closer line. And so if we just keep punching into the wall for 2 minutes straight, Mario eventually moves far enough north and touches the star's hitbox. So that's 2 stars done in the 1 button challenge. And just 1 more to go, which is the Klepto star. For this one, we have to somehow touch Klepto to unlock the star and then collect the star. But that's easier said than done given that we can only punch along the ground. So let's talk about Klepto for a minute. He actually functions differently depending on which mission you select. It's only on mission 1 where he has the star. On all the other missions, he tries to steal your hat and there is no star. So in order to collect the Klepto star, we have to select mission 1. That's a little bit of an issue though, because remember that tornado we used to get onto the pillar? Well, that tornado is only present on missions 4, 5, and 6. It's not there on missions 1, 2, or 3. So given that we're selecting mission 1 for the Klepto star, that means we won't have access to that tornado. Luckily though, I figured out that we can have this fly guy shoot us with a flame to get us onto the pillar, so that should work. But there are 2 remaining questions. 1, how do we touch Klepto? And 2, how do we touch the star? First, let's focus on Klepto. It's gonna be pretty hard to touch him given that he flies so high up in the air.
Kleptomaniac.
But you see, there are 3 spots that Klepto likes to circle around, and each spot is near a pillar, which could give us some height to work with. First, Klepto circles this pillar near the Tox boxes, but since this pillar is surrounded by deadly quicksand, I don't see how we could get onto it. Second, Klepto circles this pillar near the pyramid entrance. Interestingly, this one has a crazy box nearby, and if we pick it up just right, we can hit Klepto. And then third, Klepto circles this pillar near the oasis. Now this one has a fire spitter next to it, so we can get burnt to get onto the pillar. But what do we do from there? Well, watch this. If we go onto the steep part of the pillar, Mario becomes airborne and falls off. So instead of just falling down, we can instead use B to do a dive and rollout that reaches Klepto. So that's 2 ways of reaching Klepto. But we still have to find a way to get the star because punching along the ground won't work. I tried getting burned.
Don't get me started on the
pillar
petrol
and then
situation.
running off the back of it, but that doesn't go far enough. I also tried punching onto the back of the pillar, then doing a dive.
Fucking
and that also
$2.09
didn't go far enough.
a litre.
But watch this. If we grab the
When
crazy
last
box,
week it
we
was
actually
$1.60.
can reach the star. So here's the plan. Touch Klepto using this pillar so that we preserve the
Fucking
crazy box, then use the crazy box to get the star. So here's what I did. Same beginning as the other times.
43 or
Grab the
45
crazy
cent
box, get the
fucking
fly guy to
increase.
change our angle, heal
We
using
get
the
fucked.
Pokey's coin, get the Goombas to redirect us. Then I use this Pokey to redirect my angle, kill him and get his coin to recover to full health. Now remember, there's no tornado this time.
They
we
say
can
there may
actually
be a
just punch our way
shortage. Yeah,
through the
true.
quicksand trap because it doesn't move Mario while he's punching. So I continue punching forwards and I get the fly guy to notice me. Now fortunately, Mario's actually immune from enemy attacks while in this quicksand because the action for being in quicksand is flagged as invincible. But he can still get hit while punching because that's a different action. So I get the fly guy to knock into me while I'm punching, which redirects me so that I'm facing towards the pillar. Then I punch forwards more until I'm in just the
All
right
that
spot.
fucking war,
Then
I know,
get
yes.
Run up the pillar, stall for a bit by punching in
Some
place,
places have
fall
$3.
off, grab onto the fly guy,
You
and
fucking
twirl
kidding
over to
me?
the pyramid. Now I land on the pyramid
Fuck
facing
me.
a perfect angle. The way I got this angle is because earlier in the run, before I even entered Shifting Sands Lands, I fought Bowser, and I held Bowser at just the right angle. Now the variable for that doesn't get cleared between levels, and so it ends up influencing the angle that Mario lands the twirl at. And with this angle, I can punch forwards and go onto the slope right next to the fly guy and use him to twirl off of the pyramid. That ends up putting me over here where there's a tornado that exists on all missions. So I go into the tornado multiple times to give me a better position and angle. Now once I have a good setup, I punch this way, go into the water, and I actually manage to turn around using the various slopes in this area.
Fucking
Watch this
wall.
part. I go onto a steep floor, fall off, roll out onto it to store vertical speed, pop up going backwards, and ultimately end up facing the exact direction I need. Then I punch forwards until I'm near the fire spitter. I get burnt by the fire, go up the pillar, and I try to roll out into Klepto, but it doesn't work. So what's going on? Well, remember earlier when I tested it? Because we were just testing, I got into position with a ground pound, and then I was able to dive in place and roll out into Klepto. In other words, I drove in
So
the
they'll
first
just
frame
leave it at that
possible,
price?
and that
Yeah,
let me stay
probably.
near the top of the pillar. But this time, since it's
Probably.
for real, I'm not ground pounding into position, I'm using the flame. But there's a slight difference in behavior this way because the earliest B press this time punches instead of diving. If we want to dive, we have to wait an extra frame until doing the B press, and that causes Mario to fall down the pillar too far, and so the rollout doesn't connect with Klepto. So yeah, it's a bit of a problem. Luckily though, I managed to find a workaround. Watch this. We can dive roll out into the pokey, get knocked back and bounce on him, and end up back on the pillar. And this time, because we're in knockback, we don't have the 1 frame delay in the dive, so now the rollout does hit Klepto. Then I heal using the blue coin and use the fire to climb up the pillar again to get past it. Specifically, I fall off the back of it and slide on the ground to give me a better angle. Then I punch over to the tornado, go in it multiple times to redirect me, grab the crazy box while aimed right towards the star, and it misses. So what's going on? It's not like I aimed wrong, it's that I'm overshooting the star, which is a big problem because we have no way to shorten the box's trajectory. But it worked earlier during testing, so why would it fail now? Well, I did some digging around, and here's the reason. You see, there's an interesting thing about stars when they move into their final position. Due to a bug in the code, the star always moves 1 frame too far when it goes into its spot. So look, this red line shows where the star is trying to end up. So if we spawn the star from the left, it'll end up slightly more to the right. And if we spawn the star from the right, it'll end up slightly more to the left. Now earlier during my testing, I had thought that that little difference was negligible, and so I had just spawned the star from here. That makes the star spawn farther from the crazy box, allowing the crazy box to bounce right into the star. But if we spawn the star from this pillar, then the star ends up in a bad spot, and so we can't ride the crazy box into it. It overshoots. I also tested riding the crazy box onto this slope in the hopes that I could then slide down and roll out into the star, but it just doesn't quite reach. In fact, no matter what angle I tested, I couldn't find a way to make it work. Now, when I realized that, I was devastated. Like, I know we already got 2 stars in the 1 button challenge, but I wanted this 3rd one. It was so close and I already sunk too much time into it. There had to be a way to make it work. And that's when it hit me, what if we could use 1 crazy box bounce to both hit Klepto and get the star? Because previously, we just focused on the 3 points that Klepto circles around. But Klepto also migrates between those 3 points. You see, Klepto will wait at the point that's closest to Mario, and he'll wait there until Mario gets close and stays close for some time. That causes Klepto to go to one of the other points and then come back. In this case, he goes to the right pillar and then comes back to the left pillar. And so if we grab the crazy box at just the right time during Klepto's migration, we can both hit Klepto and fall into the star. There is one complication though, because watch this. If I go next to the crazy box and then wait for Klepto to leave, he never does. You see, here's the range that counts as being close to Klepto. But you can see that Mario periodically exits the range, so we don't stay in it for a long enough sustained time. It's kind of weird though, because when Klepto first arrives at this point, his range encompasses the crazy box. See, the crazy box stays within the red circle 100% of the time, even when Klepto is farthest away. But after some time, his positioning kind of devolves and then no longer covers the crazy box. See, now the crazy box periodically exits the red circle. So basically, we need to get into position next to the crazy box, but do it shortly after Klepto arrives at this point. If we do that, the range encompasses the crazy box, Mario stays within the range for enough time, Klepto leaves, migrating to the exact point we need him to go to, and then we can pull off the maneuver with the crazy box to both hit Klepto and collect the star. So here's the plan. We can't approach the crazy box right away because Klepto's positioning has already devolved. So instead, we have to approach it from the other side. Then we'll be able to stay close to Klepto, having him frequently refresh his pathing so that he never devolves into the bad state. So let's go back to the task. This time, we still navigate to the oasis and turn around. Then I use this pokey to re-angle myself and navigate towards the pillar. It is a bit tricky to get past this spot because it's so tight, but after enough times, I finally managed to get through it. Then I punch forward, use the pokey to redirect me, punch forward again, and then get redirected again. Now I'm facing directly towards the crazy box. And this time, Klepto's pathing didn't devolve yet, so after some time, he does end up leaving and coming back. And then at the perfect moment, I grab the crazy box, bounce up, hit Klepto, and fall right into the star. So we did it. Even though all those things went wrong, somehow it still worked out in the end. This wasn't the sunk cost fallacy, this was the sunk cost triumph. And here's another view of the ending so that you can see exactly what happened. So I wait here until Klepto leaves, and then I use that moment to get into position. So Klepto is migrating to the pillar on the right, and then he returns to the pillar on the left.
I was saying
Because
before,
he just got here, his
Klepto is
position
in
didn't devolve yet.
Kleptomaniac.
So I can wait here next to the crazy box, and I remain inside the red circle at all times. The bound of the red circle does get pretty close, but I do stay inside. That causes Klepto's timer to keep increasing, which you can see above his head. And once the timer reaches the threshold at 573, it causes Klepto to migrate away to the other pillar. That sets things up perfectly for the final maneuver. So we grab the crazy box, bounce up into Klepto, and fall right into the star. So, despite all odds, we got the Klepto star, which totals 3 stars in all. So yeah, that's the entirety of the one button challenge. We restricted ourselves to one button, so our controller might as well have looked like this, which was not much to work with. The challenge seemed impossible at first, as all we could do was punch slowly along the ground, not even turn. So we'd constantly get stuck, fall off the edge, or just have no conceivable way of progressing. But through sheer willpower and perseverance, we managed to get not 1, not 2, but 3 different stars. That's 3 stars each gotten using only one button. So it just goes to show...
Alright, cunts. I am going to fucking the offs to bed. Whoops. Alright. So, gute Nacht, meine Freunde. Hab's ein Glück hier. Sweet dreams, peppers. Oh God, Dave. Stop it. Alright, cunts. See you all tomorrow. I'll try and finish off a little bit more of this test. Sorry, not test, the psionics only run. I believe personally for me that this wouldn't be done real time. It would be impossible. Because you'd need a lot of RNG manipulation to actually do it. So. But yeah. And even better, too, I've got Monday off. So I don't have to work on Monday. Nice. And speaking of Peppers, actually, did you hear that he, on his latest video, he goes, oh, and if you're oblivion, you say, fun fact. Yeah. No, fucking, because it's public holiday in Canberra. So it's Canberra Day, whatever it is. Or nah. Monday. Excuse me, it's not a public holiday in New South Wales, it's only in ACT. So, because I work in ACT, I get that public holiday off, which is nice. Yeah. Anyway, cunts, I'll see you all tomorrow. Don't know if I'll be up and early, I'm not sure yet. We'll see how we go. Anyway, have a good one. When the thumb goes up, some cunt's gonna get fucked up the ass. Have a good one, boys and girls. And genders in between. Alright, fuck off. Yeah, alright. See you, cunts. Back to the old saying again. Yeah, fucking earth. I haven't said it in a while. Anyway, good night, guys. Have a good one. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye. Mwah. Love you all. See ya.